Hey, this is Royce Hall. I'm the Director of Business Development here at Level 12. I'm with Matthias Hager. He's one of our team leads today, and we just wanted to talk about one of our recent projects. So, Matthias, we were doing a project for a mold control company here in Louisville, Kentucky. A lot of people think that we're talking about like dermatologists, but we're actually talking about the people that control the vermin in your backyard. And why don't you just walk us through that a little bit, kind of the before state, because they had already done a project similar to what we had done before. So walk us through kind of the before state, what we did for them, and then their response to our activity there.
Yeah, so this company was it was pretty interesting because they came to us having already had this product built for them before. They were using this custom software already that another company had developed for them, but it just wasn't working out the way that they wanted it to. And they were running into all sorts of bugs and problems with the software. And although it powered their company for a couple of years, they came to us looking for something better to really fit the vision of what they were looking for. Now, the previous software, it had a lot of troubles, a lot of problems that we fixed. The biggest, most noteworthy one probably was that it was developed in a way that didn't really follow best practices or good development practices, which led to data literally disappearing on the client. And the software tracks all of their visits to their customers' houses and all of their work requests for visits, and manages their agents' routes for the day. And so when data disappears for this sort of software, the company was literally losing money on a regular basis. They'd go in one day.
Yeah. Because in this situation, this is a kind of a logistics application. It allowed them to build routes and schedules, and then it also kind of prompted them for activity, right? Like, okay, 15 days from now, Mrs. Smith needs her traps to be reset or whatever. And
Yep.
that's what they were losing.
Exactly. So they would, they'd make a visit to a customer's house. They'd record that visit in their software. They would bill them for that visit and then go back the next week to pick up their traps or set more traps or whatever. So what would happen would be sometimes they'd go in and a record of a visit would just not be there anymore in their software. And so this
how does that happen?
Well, the how is really interesting. So at a high level, the database was built in a way where records were not linked to each other. So sometimes they would get disconnected. So you'd have a customer record and a record of a visit, but they weren't actually linked in the database the way that they should have been linked, and their software would occasionally just lose the record of those. So they would still have the information in the database, but whenever they brought up their customer's record or whatever, there was no sign of it being linked to the visit. The other problem was the delete. This is the simplest one and could have been fixed years ago, but it just blows my mind that it couldn't, was there's a delete button in the application, so they could delete a visit if they made a mistake or something, but it didn't confirm before they deleted it. And when they're browsing this software on their mobile device, it's a real small button right next to the edit button. So sometimes they'd just be scrolling or trying to edit and they'd accidentally delete something. There's no confirmation, no alert that something was deleted, so things would just disappear. Pretty mind-boggling. So it cost them money because they'd lose record of visits. It would cost them time. They'd lose track of visiting a customer, so they'd have traps out there at a customer's house that just sit there for weeks. The customer's sitting there wondering why they're not coming back to pick up their traps. There's probably dead moles sitting in those traps for who knows how long before the customer finally calls and says, hey, you guys never came back. And then they realize, hey, we set traps here 4 weeks ago and lost all record of it. So the other thing that that happened because of this, because they knew this problem existed in their software. They actually had to change how they were billing their customers, so that instead of being able to just run billing once a week and take everything over to QuickBooks and send invoices, they would run billing every night. So they were spending more time trying to fix the problems that their software had, and ultimately the software was costing them more time and money than it was actually saving them. And so that's why they came to us. They needed the same software essentially built, but in a way that was reliable, trustworthy, largely error-free. It's not going to lose data and money for them. And that's what we did. They've been running on our software now since I believe April. So they ran through their entire season on it with almost no problems. There were a couple minor bugs that we fixed and were able to address real early on, but the owner of the company came to us a couple weeks ago to get a new feature built, and he said that, you know, now that he can trust us, that nothing will magically disappear. And that seems like the faintest of praise, like the least amount of compliment that you could give a person. But based on his history with software, it's actually really a powerful quote, I think, that he has that trust in us, in the software that we've built.
Yeah, I think that is a good quote, and thanks for telling us kind of the whole story, because I think that quote alone, it doesn't sound that impressive, unless you have the context around it. One of the things that stands out to me, and I'm not sure if this was our client's perspective, but when we go out there and talk to potential clients and people that are looking at investing in software, it kind of seems like there's this understanding that, well, you're just another software development company. Like, why should, how is level 12 any different than, anybody else? And, what did we do differently in this situation that made our product, better than what they already had? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so there are a few things. Number one is we really worked with the customer to build the product. Now they came to us with an existing system that, worked 75% of the time. It did mostly what they needed. It was just buggy. We could have just rebuilt that bug-free. Bug-free is sort of a loaded term. Nothing is ever really bug-free, but we could have just rebuilt it exactly the way it was. But we wanted to build them something that actually saved them time and money and worked better. And so we worked closely with them. And during that process, we identified one piece that was really time intensive for them. Now they're scheduling their agents to go out every day and make stops at different houses all over the Louisville and surrounding areas. And their previous software, the way this would work was they would look at a list of all their customers who have open work requests, who need to go out and lay traps or pick up traps. And they would look at the zip codes for, this list of 100+ customers, and they would try to think in their mind about how zip codes are oriented in the Louisville area to try to organize this mentally into a logical order of how they should make these stops. Then they would take the top addresses that they think they should go visit that day. They would copy and paste them into MapQuest, and then they would rearrange the map to get an order of based on the MapQuest map of what it looked like they should go do. And then they would go back into their software and manually reorder all the different routes that they should stop that day. So they'd go in for each one and put, okay, this should be stop number 1, scroll down wherever in the list, find the next one, this should be stop number 2. It would take them hours every day to build the routes for the next day. And so originally,
you laugh, but I actually did that very thing in Louisville. I used to do that for one of my past jobs.
Yeah, so you know exactly how
I know exactly
and time intensive it is.
Oh man, it really is. And when you have hundreds and thousands, I think I was dealing with thousands of clients. Man, it's hard. even if
Yeah.
you delegate that to other people, somebody in the organization is doing it.
Yeah, and this is the perfect case of where software should be automating things, saving time and money. So we could have just built it the same way and let them keep copy pasting, but we identified early on, like this is an essential feature. You don't even realize how much time this is going to save you. I know that you don't have, they're a small local company. They don't have a huge enterprise budget. So we had to keep it within budget. So we couldn't, use algorithms to determine the absolute best route. Instead, we worked with them to find a solution that was still relatively affordable and cheap, but did 99% of the work for them. And there's a map feature built in for them that automates it. It just does straight lines, so it doesn't follow the roads exactly, which would be a lot more complex and expensive, but it just does straight lines so they can look at all the different addresses on a map based on a priority of how soon they should visit them, and build their route in 5 minutes instead of hours every night.
Yeah.
So that was a huge time saver, just listening to what their needs actually were and building what they needed instead of exactly what they had before.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a pretty good use case as well for what we call an MVP, the minimal viable product. As you said, we could build the optimization, the route optimization feature, like that can be done, but where is the ROI for them against their budget? If we spend an extra $20,000-$30,000 on that, are they going to save enough time to justify that? Because that's what our first goal was, is to save them hours. And that's kind of where the ROI is coming for in the first iteration here. Save them hours, while also, I guess, the other ROI is helping them actually collect all the work they're supposed to do. So there's recouping dollars that were just lost in space as well. And I think eventually they want a franchise as well, which that's the other thing that this would allow them to do.
Yeah, and that's something that we took into consideration when we built it. And while all of the features for franchising are maybe not necessarily there because they're not at that point yet, we built it in such a way that it's really flexible for when they want to eventually go that route. We can make it happen for them very easily.
Right on.
Back to your question about what we did differently that makes us different. I want to add one more part of it, which is that we really believe in testing and in automated code testing, and we follow test-driven development practices, and we did with this application. And this is a relatively small application. It has a very core feature set that lets them do the work that they need to do, but everything inside of it is tested with automated tests that run every time we make a change. Every time we deploy something, these tests are run to ensure that nothing breaks. And so we actually test that things won't magically disappear like he was experiencing in the past. Those are the exact kind of problems that automated testing fix, or what they were experiencing in the past. So by building it according to the sort of philosophy that we as a company live by, we avoid most of the mistakes that his previous software made. And if you look at the code base, actually, there are more tests than there are actual code in it. That's how much we sort of dedicate to it. The percentage of tests in it is very high to the actual code base.